Welcome to the check-in, where a couple of friends hang out on their lunch breaks and talk about life during emerging fascism. Danielle, it is so good to see you after taking a week off. I was looking forward to this, basically for 2 weeks now. How are you doing, my friend?
Aw. I missed you.
I missed you too.
I missed you. I missed our conversations. Um, I'm doing okay. Uh, I'm feeling I don't know. We were just saying before that time feels weird right now.
Yeah.
And just everything I will say this. I'll give a little bit of a bit of a story. I'm working on a piece right now about my experience last night. So my girlfriend is a season ticket holder for the New York
Okay.
Liberty, the WNBA team. And so because of her over the past couple of years, I've become like a sports fan. Like I'm that girlfriend that's like, well, she likes basketball. Maybe I should like learn
Let's
about
go.
basketball. So, but I love the WNBA, and I love where women's sports is right now. And it's been super exciting going to the games and just like feeling the energy. And what has happened, they won a championship last year.
Hmm.
And what has happened is that the season ticket holders just received their increase for next year. And everybody expected it to go up, but the price is 3 to 4 times
Oh,
what it
nice.
previously was.
Love it.
So now, folks, and this is a largely Black, people of color, Latino, queer um, group of people, right? That kind of make up the borough, that make up Brooklyn, and that make up the audience for this team. And now they've been priced out.
Nice. Great.
And it is and so last night was the last home game of the regular season before they go into playoffs. And instead of it being marked with jubilation and excitement about like, yay, we're ready to defend our title, I looked around and I had so many conversations with people that were in tears, that were hugging like it was the last day of high school, saying goodbye to community because you sit in the same seats saying goodbye to people that, they'll probably not see again. And I was having a conversation with people and just talking about how capitalism and greed really suck the culture, the
Yep.
community, the lifeblood out of everything. And, you're seeing it in our society, you're seeing it in the country, but this is like a microcosm
Hmm.
of everything that is incredibly wrong with um, greed and unregulated wealth and lack of, and just focusing on the self as opposed to the collective. And I woke up this morning, Jared, just feeling really sad about kind of the state of not only this team and this community that I've become a part of and like have grown to love, but just the state of where we are.
Yeah.
It is just it's so gross is just the word that keeps coming to me. It's just gross. So that's like how I woke up today and I'm kind of feeling.
I'm so glad you brought this up the way it did, because you just gave a concrete example of something that I think has completely affected living in the United States of America and the eventual rise of fascism, which is that you have things in your life that mean something to you, but they mean nothing to capitalism. Absolutely less
Yeah.
than nothing, right? Because they break them down, and basically it's for profits, it's profit seeking. That's it. And any way, shape, or form in order to squeeze a few more bucks or a few cents. And what ends up happening I've struggled to try and give an example, which is why I'm so happy you just gave yours, because this has happened around the country for decades now.
Yeah.
Like things that mean things to people, that give them meaning, that give them purpose, that give them community. Those things, like they're bedrocks. They're the things that people build their lives on and their connections on and their meaning on. And then capitalism, which doesn't give a shit about your feelings. It doesn't care what matters to you. It doesn't care, like what things have meaning. It comes along and it feels like this invisible force that like destroys your life. It eats it up, it gets rid of it, it moves it out. I lived in Indiana during the 1980s, 1990s when neoliberal globalism like absolutely hollowed that community out,
Yeah.
right? Like everything
Yeah.
from businesses to the things that people depended on. And the problem here is that one, you've correctly identified the problem, which is greed.
Yeah.
It's the desire for someone to make money, like regardless of how it makes other people feel. The issue here is that if you don't understand that, there are people who are ready to tell you a story that their political enemies and the people that they want to take advantage of and exploit, they're the ones responsible,
Yeah.
right? And it makes you have this weird sort of I think vulnerability to it, and like it allows you to sort of like if you're not careful, those things seep in very easily in an unconscious way. You don't think about it, right? All of a sudden you're getting answers and you're getting sort of explanations that then go ahead and sort of stand in for the lack of understanding that you have. And so what you just brought up, it's pure uncut greed and capitalism, but it's taking something away and it makes you feel powerless. It makes you feel like I
Yeah.
can't do anything about it. And what's it about? It's about profit seeking. And that's it. That's awful, and it's everywhere. That's everything in life.
And that's the thing is that, like, look, I live in a city. You experience gentrification all the time, right? The collapse of community and culture that build different neighborhoods fall under the weight of capitalism when they are what? Priced out, when the rents get to a place where you can no longer afford the home that you have been living in, and you get pushed further and further out, and people become more and more dispersed that were community. Another example, I would, I walk, all over the place, and there is an area that I walk past, and I enjoy it all the time. It's a parking lot that's like been just vacant, and in this parking lot is filled uh at times with like two different groups of Dominican men, older men, who smoke cigars and play dominoes. There are like two tables, folding card tables, that they put out, and they play salsa and bachata. They just play music, and they smoke cigars, and they play dominoes. The other day, I'm walking past this street that I walk past walk past the corner that I walk past all the time, and it's boarded up, because what's coming now? Apartments that no one can
Yep.
afford.
Yep.
And so what was a part of the community, of the neighborhood, is now gone. And again, I'm saying, I understand that things change. I understand that we are forced inside of a system where money, right, and making more of it is always the goal. But the question that I find myself asking these days is, to what end?
Yep.
To what end? Right? So when I'm framing it around the WNBA, and I say, and my team, and I say, so you've created this culture, you've been really intentional about what you've done, that it has grown the valuation of the team off the charts, right? You have more investors, more eyeballs, more things. Why would you squeeze the very people who have made this what it is, instead of going after more sponsors, instead of looking at this as an incremental shift that is going to happen, that we're going to transition over the next few years? Right? And you tell people, okay, this year is going to be one times more than two, and then so you give people an opportunity to either gather their coins, or figure out something else. But to just bang them over the head with it. The same way that landlords do that I've, just this week, all of the big landlords, guess who they were sitting down for lunch with?
Mm.
Andrew Cuomo,
Yep.
right? Because they don't want Zoran Mamdani as mayor, because Zoran Mamdani is going to push for a rent stabilization and structure that actually benefits the people who
Yep.
make New York City what it is. And they don't want that. They want the guy that is in bed with the oligarchs, that they go to the same country clubs, meet in the same back rooms, that will do their bidding. And I guess I'm fucking sick of it, Jared. And I feel like it's just so in our face now.
Yep.
We just see it everywhere. And I know, like you said, it's been going on for decades, but there is something about these last 5 years that this pill that we've always been able to swallow with a little bit of sugar, make the medicine go down, we're now fucking choking on.
Yep. Yeah, and by the way, like you brought up, and again, man, you're hitting all the perfect examples of this. The people who are putting up those apartments, if you're doing that in New York City, like you have an exorbitant amount of money. Like you
Right.
don't need more money.
Yeah.
Like you just don't. And the idea behind this perpetual growth is always going to lead to fascism. Like what people are doing with Andrew Cuomo, who has just openly told people, I'm willing to work with Donald Trump.
Yeah.
I'm willing to work with these open fascists. And who are showing up? It's not Proud Boys. It's not like these white militias. It is the titans of industry. It's the oligarchs of New York City. It's the real estate people. It's the people who, by the way, already have enough money. They don't
Yeah.
need to go this route. And all that we're talking about, Danielle, we're not talking about total redistribution. We're talking about free buses. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about transportation. That's it. And by the way, the people who need that transportation are the people who work for those people.
Right.
So in the long run, they're going to fuck themselves.
Right.
But because perpetual growth is absolutely an absurdity. It doesn't make any sense, which by the way is one of the reasons I'm so pissed that this abundant stuff is going on. And by the way, who funds it? The Koch brothers and
Right.
people like that.
And Bloomberg. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's the same people who are making these relationships with fascists because they can't imagine not making a few extra dollars here and there. And what's more important than that? Nothing. It doesn't matter if human beings are going to lose meaning. It doesn't matter if human beings are going to die, if human beings are going to suffer. But there's no plan. There's no long term plan. And like you said, it has been going on for decades, but it feels so bad now because we're in the smash and grab territory now.
Yeah.
It's like things have gotten so bad because there is no long-term plan. There's no thoughts about how to take care of people or make any lives better, that things are deteriorating. This is meeting its eventual end. So the people who have all the parts and all the power and all the resources, they need to get those last couple of hungry hippo marbles. And it doesn't matter how it hurts anybody. And what you're talking about right now, like what we actually need is some type of a system that has a plan that actually takes a look at things through a human element. And by the way, this is why AI is so important to these fuckers, because AI doesn't care about people's feelings. It doesn't care about
Right.
like
Right.
experience of people. It's a completely synthetic thing. And by the way, liberals and moderates can go, oh, it wasn't my choice. The AI made it. As we're rationing Medicare, as we're rationing medical treatment.
Mm-hmm.
And so what you eventually get is a system where you need a system where people look at things and they're like, what matters? Like really what matters to people? What makes life better? And what makes life better is a sense of community. It's taking care of scarcity. It's making sure that people can get healthcare. It's making sure people get, healthy food that isn't poisoned, air that isn't poisoned, but that doesn't matter to the people who need perpetual growth. It's sociopathy. That's all it is. It's literally a group of people that don't think about other human beings as other human beings. Period.
But I'm just like, again, to what end?
Yeah.
Right? Like, if a building has no foundation and it is just top heavy, what happens to it? It collapses.
Yes.
Right? So this idea that the ultra wealthy can just continue to consume like the nothing in the never ending story, just consume,
Yep.
consume, and then eventually think that who is working for them? Where are they getting workers for? But I guess, like, again, I say this in a very dark way, but also a very realistic way, is that their assumption, the assumption that I believe and the bet that the oligarchy is making right now, is that we don't need people anymore.
Right.
We have these automated systems. We only need what used to need 150 or 1,000 person company or factory will now just need maybe 10, right, to manage the automation. Then we'll, because of that, create this criminal class, right, which
Yeah.
then turns into free labor because now you're in jail, right? Because you have no opportunities, no access. We have created the conditions for chaos and desperation. So then we fill the for-profit prison industrial complex. So whatever workers that they were needing to pay health care and 401ks and what have you, now they don't need anymore because either I have a handful of people who I pay the bare minimum because I can replace them like a cog in machine quite easily because so many people are desperate. And then for the rest, I have automation and I have slave labor.
Like,
That's the plan.
oh yeah, it absolutely is. And by the way, like you can't I one of the things that pisses me off this so much, Danielle, and I'm sure it has you, it's the shallow analysis that has taken place in our media and our political class. Nobody ever wants to connect these dots. You don't create a carceral state unless you want people to labor. You don't want to handle their needs. You don't want to make sure that they have the necessities. And so then you have a situation where, by the way, the quickest way to get around like minimum wage is to put people behind bars. That's it. And you go ahead and factor in the food that you're giving them. And then you create a carceral state that looks a lot like chattel slavery. And then all of a sudden you look around and speaking of dots that aren't being connected, who is funding what's happening with ICE right now in this secret police state? It is the major corporations around the country. They're the ones who are profiting from this. They're the ones that are providing the logistics. They're the ones that are providing the support. They're the ones who are raking in all the money. And who is making the most money? Private prison developers.
Yep.
It is a jobs program for billionaires. It
Hmm.
gives them something to do. It gives them profit. What are we creating in this country right now? AI data centers, which we don't even know if they're going to work, and also they're going to destroy the environment, and private
Because
prisons.
I was like, oh, on top of which they take up all of the water that people actually need to drink, to bathe, to cook in order to cool these AI systems, AI data centers.
Right. And by the way, like some of this is conscious and some of it is unconscious. What do you do with people whenever they don't have water and they get desperate? We've seen this around the world in places where genocide is being carried out. What do you need? You need law enforcement. You need surveillance. You need stronger state power in order to keep those people in place. So some of it is thought of and some of it is planned. And the other parts are just sort of dealing with what's going on. You had mentioned buildings collapsing. It was just a few years ago in Miami that like an apartment building absolutely
Yep.
collapsed because the person who developed it didn't give a shit enough in order to make it a building that would stand. They don't think about this. This is why a company gets in a room and they're like, hey, by the way, our baby powder is giving children cancer. Okay, well, can we bring in the actuary to tell us like what we would lose if we did a total recall versus not? And all of a sudden, same with our automobile manufacturers. All of these people that the government, as it's been corrupted and captured, the government should be in there telling them you can't do this, that it should be stopped. All that's been wiped out. So
Yep.
all that's left is the most predatory profit seeking imaginable. And you can't have predatory profit seeking at this level without creating gulags, without creating concentration camps. So it has to become the next step, which the solution to is that people like you and me and other people say, we don't want to live like this anymore.
Yeah.
Like, because not only does it not serve us, we can see what's coming. We can see what's coming down the line. It's very obvious. They've telegraphed all of this.
I mean, it's so fucking clear. Like, they are paving the way for the downfall of humanity, which in fact they're a part of. So it is their own destruction as well. So I just, I look at this and I think, I don't even know how much time we have. Do you know what I'm saying? And I look and I'm sure you saw what has happened in Nepal, what has happened with the literally burning down parliament, forcing the resignation of the prime minister, and like the young people just saying, yeah, fuck this. Like, no. And so I think to myself, I'm like, this only breeds the ground for revolution. It's just like how long it will take the 99% of us to have the appetite for what is necessary to stop the insatiability of the oligarchs. Oh, Jared, I can't hear you. Okay. I'm like, folks, can you hear me? Can you still hear me? Give a thumbs up in the chats if you can actually hear me. And if you can't hear, then give a thumbs down. Okay, so folks can hear me, Jared, but they cannot hear you. Okay. Jared is going to come back in. Um, but to that point, folks, like you see this too, right? Like the longer pattern.
Okay.
Okay, you're
So
back.
I'm back. So to pull the curtain back, because we talk about everything,
Yeah.
I don't know how this was for you in the very beginning of this. Like it was all glitched out and it didn't show anybody watching it.
Oh no, I could see everybody.
Well, it showed one viewer and I was like, I don't even know if this is being broadcasted, but I was enjoying the conversation.
Oh
And
no.
then it wouldn't let me back in. Here I am. We're
Here you
back.
are. We have
Okay.
289 people. By
Well,
the
hi
way. Hi,
everyone. I'm
everyone.
so glad to see you. I was having such a good conversation with you, and I was so afraid it wasn't even being recorded. Yet here we are.
Yeah, here we
So
are.
I'm glad you brought up Nepal
Hmm.
because as I was watching a literal revolution being played out, and I want to be very clear about something. There's a thing called the social contract, which is the idea that we give power to people because we expect them to meet a few requirements. We expect them to act in our best interest. We expect them to run a society that is going to, be at least human and
Yeah.
at least, not be totally corrupted. When the social contract is broken, and again, to be very clear, the social contract has been broken in the United States of America.
Oh yeah.
And at that point, if people are going to kill you, if people are going to imprison you, if people are going to basically become totally corrupt and not represent you, shit starts to change. And you start having different options. And to watch what was happening in Nepal, like, quite frankly, the people deserved it. Like the leaders, like in terms of their corruption and their exploitation, they deserved it. And in the United States of America, I got an email yesterday, and I'm sure you hear this every now and then. We talk about like what needs to happen in this country and what we need to do. And people say to me, well, how are we supposed to do it? Like, how are we supposed to stand up to this thing? And you look at like Nepal, you look at South Korea when they prevented a presidential coup within a couple of hours. And the problem here is that we're actually held back by our imagination and our fear. That's it. Like this could be over this afternoon. Everything that we're dealing with right now could be done by this afternoon. I'm not saying it would be tidy. I'm not saying it would be easy. And I said something about this on social media and they said people would die. People are dying right fucking now.
Yep.
We don't even know how many people have died because of this
Nope.
administration. And I'll tell you what, the past few decades of hyper neoliberal capitalism, we have no idea how many people have died. Over like a million people died in the war on terror. Look over at Gaza, what's happening there. If you start to actually calculate how many people have died unnecessarily, the number would stagger you.
Yep.
Right? So the question here is whether or not we can actually convince ourselves that the unfamiliar future is better than the familiar hell. We can have something better. And again, it wouldn't be tidy and it wouldn't be clean, but I also think, and this is something I'm going to be talking about a lot in the future, The precarity that we're talking about not having enough money, not having healthcare, you name it, we have to create measures in order to make people feel like a collective action, like a general strike, is possible. But we have to work through our selfishness. We have to work through our fear. I personally think that the money that we've been giving to these feckless, quizzling Democrats would be a lot better served if we were giving it to our fellow citizens who needed help and
Yeah.
needed to feel more secure. And if we were able to reach some sort of point like that, we might actually be able to find some solutions in terms of collective action. But as long as we're in this precarious position, people aren't going to take that action. But it's obvious that that's the direction that we need to go with.
It is so true because I feel like even with Jared, even with this MAGAfied white nationalist Supreme Court that we have watched over the last just 3 years take away abortion, take away affirmative action,
Yep.
now green light racial profiling and abuse, um, take away opportunity, about to take away marriage equality. People still are shocked. They were shocked. Yes, they're shocked this week. Oh my God, the Supreme Court has just okayed racial profiling. I'm like, you know that this is the same body that said that Black people were 3/5 of a person. You know,
Yep.
this is the same body that created apartheid in America. You know that this is the same body that upheld Jim Crow. You
The
know that,
20th century progressive court was a blip. That's it.
like,
Everything else is white patriarchal
so I'm
capitalistic system.
confused as to why people have felt for so long that the courts are going to save us, that like this is the institution that is going to check this fascist regime,
Yep.
when in fact they empower Donald Trump whenever they have the opportunity. Giving presidential immunity was basically Donald Trump's get out of jail free card. And because you give it to the head, right? He now can dish that out to everyone, knowing that you're never going to face a Nuremberg style trial. You're never going to face any kind of consequences because I got your get out of jail free card right here. And so, to me, it is the lack of imagination in still holding on to the idea that the institutions are going to hold when the institutions are in shambles. The institutions are only as strong as the people inside them, and hundreds of thousands of people have lost their jobs. So, how are you believing still? It's like believing in Santa Claus when your parent has taken off the wig and the hat and is standing in front of you and saying, "It's me." And you're like, "No, no, don't you live in the North Pole?" It's like, what?
Well, and on that note, I always see this. It's like, oh, the founders would be spinning in their graves. No, they wouldn't. This is this is exactly what it was supposed to do. The Supreme Court was set up to do this. And here I'm going to give people a very, very brief glimpse at Revolutionary 101. Okay. And I promise you, this is going to be a little bit weird, but it will set you free. All this shit is made up. All of it's made up. It's all just a fantasy that we've agreed to do or that we've been pushed into. The Supreme Court doesn't have any actual power. They only have power because we believe that they have power.
Because
And
we follow what they say.
everyone's like, oh, we need to pack the court. Fuck no, we don't need to pack the court. We need to abolish the court. We don't need a Supreme Court. I would argue if I had my druthers and if I had my power, I would create a supreme jury, which would be citizens who determined what was the law and what was the Constitution. Or I would completely democratize them. You can't reform institutions that were created to be minoritarian, authoritarian, and white supremacist. So here is the joy in this. There's like so much grotesquerie happening right now, Danielle. One, this Epstein shit. Look at what they do. Look at what
My
they do.
God.
Look at the fact that the president of the United States of America is a deranged criminal. And everybody knows it. Anybody who denies it right now is putting in overtime in their jobs of being a cultist. We all know what he did. We've seen it. We have enough circumstantial evidence that anybody who denies it at this point is living in their own world. There is a grotesquerie to that. There's freedom in that.
Mm,
Recognize this can't be reformed. You can't just suddenly, like, an election's not going to take care of it. One election's not going to take care of it. Like, one sort of legislative movement's not going to take care of it. Something has to change in a major way. And what ends up happening in these times of great corruption and great disgustingness, and by the way, we talked about AI. Millions upon millions of people are going to be replaced by a technology that doesn't work. I'm talking about almost every white collar professional in the United States of
yep,
America.
yep,
Every creative, everybody who went to school, everybody who has said, well, I'm one of the last ones standing. No, you're not. You're standing and waiting to be shown the door. And the whole issue is that as it becomes clear that these people don't represent us, as these people aren't actually looking out for our best interest, the fiction flies away. There's no reforming this. It was designed this way. It
yeah.
was designed from the very beginning to help white men with all of the power and all of the money keep all of the power and all of the money. The progress we've made, it's been hard earned and hard fought, but there's no reforming it. Eventually, at some point, as we've talked about in the past, you have to open your eyes and say, this is reality. And that's freeing. And if you're free in that, you're free to imagine something different. That's what keeps us from being Nepal. That's what keeps us from being South Korea, is that we are so lost in the delusions that have made us comfortable. And
We
that allows us to stay in increasing pain and discomfort.
we're so lost in the delusions that made America.
That's it.
This idea of exceptionalism, this idea of the fact that, oh, well, in our country, we don't take people out and hang them, right? We have courts, we have systems, we have all of these things. And it's just like, you also have a carceral system that is over indexed with black and brown people. You also have a country, we have the courts and we have this and we have equity, really? Because you have trans people that can't use bathrooms, right? And now are getting ready to take away the Second Amendment right and actually ensure
Yep.
the second or third class citizenship of
Yep.
trans people. So it is this lack of imagination in the belief, because I wrote this the other day. I said, America was formed. The idea of democracy was created by a group of wealthy white men that sat in a room, slave holding men that did not believe that women were people, as well as the enslaved population, sat in a room and conjured up this idea of democracy. So you're telling me that with all of the technology, with all of the information, with all of the access we have in this 21st century, that we can't create something different? We can't create something more solid? That we think that what they were some type of magicians that came from on high? They sat down with a piece of fucking paper, some bourbon, right? And like figured it out and said, we'll tell the people this.
Well, and by the way, they didn't even have authority to do it. Like, the actual writing of the Constitution was more or less a coup in and of itself. And they didn't even want democracy. They saw it as the most dangerous thing imaginable. And what did they create, Danielle? They created a one party system in which they basically just kind of chose between friends who was going to be in charge.
Right.
And they did it in such a way. If you actually read the notes, and I recommend this to anybody, one of my best pieces of advice is to go read the notes on the Constitution by uh, shit. I can't believe I'm forgetting the name now. Anyway, the motherfucker who wrote it. Um, like, if you actually go read the notes, they didn't want us to have representation. They created an entire system that would allow them total control and would give us the Thomas Jefferson didn't write the Constitution. Jefferson actually got pushed out because the entire thing was against that. But we got put in a position where we were given the veneer of democracy. We were given like an illusion that would control us because those brilliant people, who, by the way, the right claims were, inspired by God, even though they were absolutely terrified of having a theocratic state, which is one of the reasons they did what they did. Like, we were given this complete system that was never supposed to include democracy. Anytime that democracy has won out in this country, it's come on the backs of people who have died fighting in the streets,
Yep.
people who have been murdered, who have been assassinated. Like, the only way that we've had any progress is because we put our lives on the line. And
Right.
here we are now, like, there's a pessimism here. There's a cynicism that we can't possibly. Yeah, James Madison, thank you. I've got a cold, which apparently one of the
He's
side
like,
effects
no,
is
I really do know things.
I just wrote about it in a book. It's just I got a cold, and the side effect is I can't remember these old white
Thank you,
motherfuckers.
Sean.
Jeez. But no, the entire point is that we have gotten to this place where we have become convinced that there's nothing else that we can possibly do, which is the greatest trick that capitalism and power ever creates. It takes over our mind space and our imagination, and it keeps us from being able to carry out what we need to carry out. And right now, it's not voting in an election. I can't tell you elections are going to happen. I've
I mean,
seen
I keep fucking telling people they're not.
that every time I do an interview, Danielle, someone's like, "Can you tell me what you think's going to happen in 26?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's going to be the year 26. What else do you want here?" Well, do you think Gavin Newsom's going to win the nomination? I don't know that there's going to be a nomination. And on top of that, fuck that. Fuck Gavin Newsom and fuck the possibility that he could win the nomination. But we can't talk about that. They're being very open about it, that they're trying to figure out a way to take these elections. So what are you going to do? Are you going to fall into blanket cynicism and say, oh, well, what are you going to do, and go along with it? Because I guarantee you there's no safety in that. Or are
Right.
you going to step up and actually fight for something and a potential better future? Because again, there's no reforming this. We have a fight in front of us, and we either take that fight or we let them bring the fight to us. That's it.
But the funny thing is that when you said like to put our lives on the line, the reality is that our lives have already been put on the line.
The whole
When you're
time.
right, the whole time. When
Yep.
you have a group, a cult, the American fascist regime that votes to give tax breaks to the ultra wealthy while taking away healthcare and social safety nets from the rest of us, they have already put your life on the line. And people say, I don't have any skin in the game. Your whole body is in the game because of choices that were made that now have an RFK Jr. making decisions about what vaccines are going to be available and on the shelves and what you're going to end up having to pay out of pocket for, which, by the way, you can't pay out of pocket for because you don't have a fucking job. So, like, the systems, right, that we are wrapped inside of like a web are choking us, whether or not we choose to get on the right side or decide to fight. Like, you are being forced to make a decision because when we had the opportunity, Jared, let us remember, to vote our way out of this, 77 million people said, fuck it, let's roll the dice on dictatorship. So we find ourselves here, at a space and time where we have very few choices that are in front of us.
Yep.
Very few choices that are in front of us. It is either fight or flee. Those are the only two choices that I see. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I mean, that's the option. And you look back in like past authoritarian like regimes. And by the way, I don't want to sugarcoat this, and I try to be very honest about it. I am not talking about an easy thing. I am not talking about something pleasant. And what have we been given, by the way, in popular culture and in the popular imagination, that if we all sing the same song, if maybe we just show up on a Saturday and stand in a park, that it'll get better. And by the way, sometimes those things help, but it also turns into a life or death struggle sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, it's not that your life isn't on the line. It's that other people's lives are being snuffed out right in front of you.
Right.
And you currently aren't under the boot. You currently aren't under the gun. So I keep explaining this. There is this surveillance apparatus that's being created. Like the most powerful people in the world are involved in a game of chicken. I mean, with Putin attacking Poland last night, like Things are escalating. The economy is melting down. We have all these issues. There's no other example to give. We're being pushed down a chute. And eventually the gate to the chute is going to be closed. And you have a choice, which is, do you fight before the gate is shut? That's it. And if you actually take a look at what's happening right now, like the entire thing is being constructed. And the good news here is if we fight, we win. I really truly believe that. Like if we actually push back and we actually fight, we win. But the biggest problem is not going to be the fight, although that will be a big problem. It is convincing ourselves to believe that we deserve better. Spam calls. It's believing that we deserve something better, and it's believing that we can have something better. And that is what is holding us back right now.
You just broke news for me because I did not know that Putin attacked Poland last night.
Oh, yeah, I believe it was like dozens of drones entered Poland and they had to be shot down. Yeah.
That feels comfortable.
It's fucking awful. And by the way, I can't control that. You can't control that. The only thing I can control is how I respond to what's happening here. And that's the hard part.
Yeah. I mean, I think that that's the thing. I don't know, and I guess that this is the question that I'm struggling with on a regular basis, is what is it going to take to wake up the imagination of the American people? What is it going to take to shake a tipping point
Yep.
loose? Because we need critical mass in order to get to a tipping point. And what you're seeing are pockets of awakening that is happening, right? You're seeing Chicago being a fantastic example of that. City of Chicago is saying to ICE, fuck y'all. We are now training people, right? How to deal with ICE, record ICE, like how to keep other people safe. You have the mayor that was working in lockstep with the salt trucks that are working in lockstep with their own police that are working in lockstep with the people and showing a blueprint of how you fight back. And you see these things, but you're just like, they're in pockets. What do you think it is going to take for critical mass?
You know, I'll go ahead and give you a little bit of inside baseball here. When I'm not doing live streams with my friends, when I'm not, writing these articles, I'm working with a group, trying to work with other groups and trying to bring together these resources and strategies and all of this. And what I find is an incredible desire to change things, an incredible desire to have something better. People who are tired of this bullshit, people who want to make something better. And what I notice when I talk to some groups is that sometimes it is a resignation, right? That this is how it's always been and it can't be better. And other times I talk to people and the thing that it comes down to, Danielle, is that we have been underneath this oppressive capitalistic system our entire lives. And what does it force us to do? It forces us to make decisions. What thing are we going to focus on? Because it feels impossible to focus on everything, right? And what do we see in like the Democratic Party? They're literally talking about creating a system in which trans people have all of their rights and protections taken away,
Yes.
where they will be
Yep.
declared mentally unwell. And for the record, anybody who doesn't know this from history, you know what happens when a group gets all their rights and protections taken away and are declared mentally unwell? They become exterminated. And
Hmm.
that's where all of this stuff.
Incarcerated and then exterminated.
Exactly. So guess what? All the people who are like, oh, I really support trans people, but I just wish they'd be a little bit quieter because it's not popular and we really need to win elections. Fuck your elections. Fuck them. Seriously. We don't even know if we're going to have them. We don't have a clue. You have to bring everybody together. And we have to create a sense of interconnectedness that
Hmm.
we either rise together or we fall apart. That's it. And like I think the critical mass is realizing this isn't just happening in Chicago. I don't live in Chicago, you don't live in Chicago, but the people of Chicago are like me. They're me. And if something happens to them, if something happens in Washington, D.C., if workers at a factory are being rounded up in some place, that's not separate from me. That's me. And I think the critical mass, it has to become, and by the way, they'll give you reasons for a critical mass. They've already killed people. They're going to kill more people. They're going to hurt more people. They're going to oppress more people. It is literally when there is a collective awareness and a decision that this cannot continue. And that's a hard thing, especially in a culture that tells us that we are alone, that we're not interconnected, and the only thing that we should look out for is ourselves. And that is what feeds fascism, period. That's it.
I feel in this moment, even learning what is happening overseas right now, learning what the Trump administration did last week by just dropping a bomb on a boat, of 11 murdering 11 people, and JD Vance saying I don't give a shit. Um and I mean, we're reaching very quickly a breaking point, a critical breaking point. And I don't know what happens when we reach that.
Yep.
And I can't tell people like, well, do you think it's in a few weeks? Do you think I mean, now at this moment, I think it's in a few days, right? Like that's what it feels like. And we started out today with saying that time feels crazy right now.
Yep.
Like it's not making any sense. Time also being a made up concept, but it's also not making any sense because we feel like we are spinning out of control. We're on this rock that is spinning, moving through space. And I'm starting to feel the dizziness of it all,
Yep.
which is a part of the strategy, well, a part of the flood the zone. But as the world is readily becoming destabilized, it's like the actions and the awakening needs to become accelerated. Like we don't have time to wait anymore. And I don't know, even if we were waiting, people are waiting. I don't know who the fuck they're waiting for.
Yeah, and I want to talk about a quick concept because I think it's one of the ways to wrap this up. It's something that's been on my mind a lot recently, which is to not always worry about control, right? To not always we have to walk this line. One, we're not powerless in this situation, and that is an illusion, the idea that we can't do anything about it. So it's not about sitting back and like letting things happen. It's about trusting, and I think probably you, me, and most of the people watching this, there's a reason why people tune into this. There's a reason why people read our stuff and listen to us. It's sort of a self-selecting group. We're a group of people who saw this for what it was. We didn't
Yeah.
want it sugar coated. We didn't want to fuck around. We didn't want to bullshit about it. We saw this maybe even well before 2015. We saw that something was wrong and we were going down a bad road. So we want to understand it. And that's why a lot of this analysis is important to people. They want to understand it. But looking at this thing, I can't tell you when it's going to be. I can't even at this point tell you that it is going to necessarily happen because I still see signs that this is a population that is in such a deep dissociative sleep. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it is
Yeah.
everywhere. If you know how to look for it, it's everywhere. I think it will come, but I also can't tell you how it's going to happen. I can't tell you how it's going to play out. I can't tell you where you or I are going to be in 6 months. I don't know that. And it would drive me crazy to try and figure it out. For me, when I look at the world, and this includes relationships and includes how I go about my days, I can get so lost in a decision tree where I'm just
Hmm.
like, well, if this happens, this happens. Well, I can do this in order to do this. And eventually what happens is that becomes so overwhelming that we freeze
And we don't do anything.
and we don't do anything.
Yeah.
And you enter a freeze state where you're not able to take action because you are so pulled by different things that are in conflict with each other. And what we have to find is a flow state where we're both fighting and
Mhm.
also understanding that we can't predict the future.
I love what you just said, Jared. The flow state.
Oh, the flow state's everything.
Oh, I love that because I do feel like there is this overwhelm of inertia and just stagnation because people are so paralyzed with fear and anxiety. We're just collectively deer in headlights. And yet the oncoming train of fascism is running with no brakes directly towards all of us. Um, and so we have got to figure out a way to get in flow. We have got to figure out a way to build this new imaginative, innovative community and collection of people sooner rather than later. And instead of looking for and waiting on one singular being that is going to come down from on high and make all things well, we have got to figure out what our roles are. And it can't just be, you know, surviving by putting a straw that is in our nostrils right now because the water is up to here. Like we have to figure out how to do it as a collective.
100%. And as an example of this, first of all, like this is one of the reasons why I missed this so much last week. Like I needed this. I needed this bad. But I want people to think about something that has happened in their lives that felt all consuming, that felt like so much weight that it would crush them. And you didn't talk about it because to say the words would be too much, right?
Yeah.
People might not understand it. And what happened when you sat down with a friend and you said the words and the friend heard you and listened and was there for you? And by the way, that friend or coworker or family member, maybe they said, "What are we going to do about it?" And all of a sudden you're like, "Holy shit, this is doable." And you start talking about like where it is that you go from there, how it is that you operate. And what did it do? It alleviated part of it, right? And you could have had that conversation. You could have had that discussion. You could have had that help. For a long time, you kept it inside.
Yeah.
That conversation with you and me, with people's friends, with people's coworkers, other people who are allies, that is the way that you take the weight off. That's the way that you start moving into a situation where you can actually take action and it isn't immobilizing because right now it's very immobilizing for not just tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people right now.
Yeah. I mean, we are, because there are some that find, oh, well, we're 8 months into this. And I'm just like, no, we're a decade. We're a decade plus into this. Like this didn't all happen in 8 months. It didn't all happen in a year. It has been a decade plus in the making. And if you want to be really like clear-eyed about it, it's like 25 years in the making of how we got here.
I was born 8 months into Ronald Reagan's first term. So I've literally spent my entire life in this. And I mean, it's just been this road that was always going to end up where it's at as long as something didn't change. So we can't say that it is just something that popped up, which is why like all of this like focus on Trump is so destructive.
Right. Right.
Yeah, he's simply the puppet
Symptom.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah. He's the symptom of a larger, like, you don't get Trump without creating the conditions
no,
for that, right? Like,
and even if he dropped dead today, somebody else is picking up the baton and running with it because this is an operation. To bring it back to the beginning of this episode, what is happening with those tickets? What's happening with that parking lot? What's happening? That's not going to stop if he dies. It was
right.
happening before I mean, it was happening his entire life. It was happening before he was ever born. Like, it's something larger that we have to deal with.
Yeah. I mean, part of the awakening is deciding, like you said, you deserve better.
You deserve
We
better.
all deserve better. We deserve better than the status quo. We deserve better than crumbs. We deserve better than living inside of a carceral state. We deserve better, right? Than sickness that can be prevented, than, hunger that can be prevented. We deserve better than people telling us, well, there's nothing to do with the unhoused, right? Like in a place that is supposed to be filled with abundance, they tell us. But yet all of these things that they can't do. And we saw for just a moment in time during COVID, how quickly government can be mobilized, how quickly
Yep.
you can put together care structures. And just as quickly as those were created, they were taken down.
And why were they created? Because they needed to keep the economy rolling. It had
Mm.
nothing to do with my health, your health, or anybody else's health. They can mobilize very quickly. 2008 showed that the government has more than enough money and power to do things. It was the whole thing coming crashing down and their own consequences coming to roost. They can do all of that. And which is the amazing thing is like they reveal who they are and what their priorities are. And we know who they are. And everything from Epstein and everything like that, like it shows us who they are. We know who they are. Now it's
Yeah.
time that we act on that realization.
Well, it's time that we ask ourselves, who do we want to be now that we know who they are?
That's exactly right. There's a gift in clarity, and you're a gift. I am
You
so
are.
glad we got to talk.
I am so glad we're back.
I know it was awful. Let's do it again next week. What do you say?
I say yes. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, my friend, and thank you for everyone tuning in. Sorry about technical difficulties. I don't know what to say. Also, I'm sorry about forgetting James Madison's name, but not. He doesn't
He's
need me to
sick, and
remember
we're
his.
in eclipse season. That's
Oh,
all people need to
we
know.
are
Okay.
no. Listen, I just a little bit of background. I wasn't going to talk about the Pisces moon today, but here we are.
Here we
Here we are. There we are. All right, everybody, enjoy eclipse season. We will be back next week with the check in. My friend Danielle, take care.
take care.